And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, myself. I'm at Memorial Stadium, Champaign, Illinois. Michigan State lost football game tonight. Today, 38-16 to Illinois. Difficult game, unsavory game, unsightly game. We'll talk about that. Also, back in East Lansing, Michigan State basketball game. They defeated Bowling Green. Ended that game on an 18-0 run, 86-72. I watched the second half of that and some of the first half of that here in the press box. Paul Konyndyk doing a great job back in the state of Michigan. He's playing hurt this week. He's battling some coughs, some fevers, and sick and everything. And we appreciate him playing hurt. Paul, you gonna make it?
Yeah, I don't know how to spell pneumonia, but I've got it.
Do you have it? If positive? I mean, you
Yeah,
came back positive. Oh, I didn't know. I knew you were getting tested. I didn't know that the test came back positive. That
yeah.
sucks. That sucks, man.
Oh well.
You gonna be all right?
Yeah, right.
Wow. All right. I didn't know that. All right. Well, we're gonna appreciate you coming on and watching games today and all that stuff. I know it takes a lot of energy to focus and try to write and do the things that you do, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And so do the Michigan State fans. The Michigan State fans need something good, certainly after today losing this game to Illinois down here in Champaign, 38-16. Michigan State falls to 4-6 on the season. Illinois is 7-3, and now they play Northwestern and Rutgers. Illinois could end up 10-2, 9-3. Could end up 9-3. They're talking about going to the Citrus Bowl, so they're all happy about it. This game was even in a lot of ways, but Illinois made the plays they needed to do to win the game. And similar to the Michigan game, they were able to protect the quarterback and they were able to pressure the quarterback, and that was the difference in the Michigan game. I thought that's the difference in the game today. I figured Illinois does some pretty good things with disguising some coverages like Indiana did. Good job with some pressures. So I thought a key was whether or not Aiden Childs could take care of the ball and avoid turnovers. He did that, but Michigan State still lost. In the stats are for losers category, Michigan State was outgained. Actually, I think Michigan State outgained them. No, they were outgained 369 to 343. 369 to 343 does not sound like a 38-16 game, especially without a big turnover discrepancy. Um, but the discrepancy, as you'll point out when we start talking, when I turn the mic over to you, the discrepancy was third down conversions. Michigan State 2 for 15 third down. Illinois 8 for 15. That right there, Illinois kept some drives alive, finished some drives with some touchdowns, and that's the difference in the game. And we'll talk about some third down specifically, what happened and what went wrong. Aiden Childs 23 of 40, 256 yards. But Michigan State 4-6 now. They need to win 2 games at Purdue Friday night against at Spartan Stadium Friday night. Thank you, NBC or whoever's televising that, for a Friday night game in November. That's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge for Michigan State fans to come and check that out. Win that one, then you have Rutgers Thanksgiving weekend to get to 6-6, to get to a bowl game. Paul, how important is a bowl game? What are your thoughts? We'll jump straight to that, and then we'll backpedal to this game specifically. But how important is it to win these two, get to the postseason, get those practices, have recruits on campus, and all that stuff? Bowl game, winning the last two, how important?
I don't know, man. You're jumping all over the place, so I don't know where you're
All right.
going with that. But yeah, a bowl game is big, and I'll tell you, like this is as disappointing as this game was. Michigan State wins against Purdue, and then all of a sudden they're right back in a situation where they get a home victory against a team, and here's my word, my phrase again, their own tier group.
Uh-huh.
Against a Rutgers team that hasn't been as good as they thought they were going to be, but they get it. You beat Purdue and you get a chance. But to do that, you got to regroup quickly, and you got to avoid the old finger pointing that can sometimes happen. Like I feel like if you're on offense in this game, you go away like you're disappointed that maybe you didn't have more chances. I feel like the defense didn't get off the field on third down throughout this game. So maybe there's more possessions to be had by the offense. But on the flip side, if you're the defense, you force a lot of 3-and-outs, and eventually you wore down against a team that can run with some power. Because of all those 3-and-outs, and Illinois does a nice job, but Michigan State's got to avoid the finger pointing. They got to go back and get to work. And it's gonna. I really think it's gonna in a game like this where you're thinking, believing in yourself that you're going to beat Illinois coming into this game, that it's going to be similar to what happened against Iowa. You've really got to avoid the finger pointing, and you've really got to avoid the hangover effect that can take place late in the season because these teams are so beat up. you could see it out there the way some guys are moving on the field. So I think it's easier early in the season to bounce back from a game like this, but a physical game against Illinois, bouncing back, which should be a winnable game against Purdue, but it's a short week. And Purdue, they're a prideful team. They're in the Big Ten as well, and it's not going to be easy. There will be adversity in that game, and Purdue will probably try to find a way to take advantage of what Michigan State's weaknesses are. And there are weaknesses that can be exploited right now. So this is by no means a gimme. But the first thing Michigan State has to do is they have to beat Purdue. If that happens, all of a sudden I think the mindset changes. Kind of you're feeling starting to feel good about yourself, and you put yourself in a good position to beat Rutgers. But they've got to come out. They've got to do some things against Purdue that they could not do against Illinois. And it's unfortunate because when I look back at this game, I felt like Aiden Childs played. He played within himself, and he didn't hurt his team today. And that in a game where he was pretty much the only thing that was working for that offense in a lot of ways. So
Mhm.
it's kind of it showed some growth on his part, but I think the disappointing thing is that Michigan State couldn't give him the time he needed to throw the football. There wasn't a lot of open receivers. I know Illinois does a good job switching coverages. I don't feel like that deep ball was there as much as it has been at other times this year. But I think Illinois has a good football team, and their four-man pressure was a huge problem for Michigan State. And this kind of felt like one of the first times against a tier group team, the Michigan State had real problems on the interior of that offensive line. And, I feel like Illinois' interior offense or defensive line created some issues for Michigan State that we haven't seen very often this year. And it wasn't just the tackles on the outside making mistakes.
Offensive line not getting better as the season goes along. They've had some struggles. Everybody knows that personnel struggles, injury struggles earlier in the year. Jonathan Smith said all through the season that Michigan State, the team wants to play their best at the end of the year and going into November. That's not the case coming out of this bye week. Did not play their best today. Aiden Childs did some good things, 23 out of 40 for 256. Made some progress in terms of taking care of the ball. No real near interceptions either. Inaccurate a few times. That's going to happen when you throw it 40 times, with 45 dropbacks when you factor in the sacks. And unable for Michigan State on some third down situations. Had that rash of three straight three and outs there in the second half. When I look at a, a third and two, right after Michigan State had scored on the opening drive of the second half, then Illinois goes down, drives, kicks a field goal, and in that drive, Michigan State did get off the field on a 3rd and 8 at the 19-yard line. Nikai Martinez blitzing, getting heat on the quarterback, incomplete. Michigan State the next three possessions, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. The first one, 3rd and 2, and he's looking over to the left, and he gets heat immediately, and they buzz the linebacker out to the flat, not open. There's no time to go to a second read. Got a punt. Next time, 3rd and 4. That was the play you might remember when he talked to Montorie Foster just before they came to the line of scrimmage. Went to Montorie Foster on a fade. The color commentator mentioned that he thought maybe Foster should have given him a little bit more leverage, a little more space out to the sideline. Incomplete on a 3rd and 4 fade. Next time, 3 and out. First play of the drive, they run a quarterback draw, which seems like a pretty safe play. Somehow goes for a loss of 3. Quarterback draw should never go for a loss of 3. Drops back. That's that penetration you're talking about. I think they did blitz on that one, but it was a lead draw. The running back is going to make a lead block on somebody. They lose 3 right away. Then on 3rd and 13, they run that dash thing that's worked all year. They only run it about once a game. You can't run it over and over. Completes it for a gain of about 11. Sets up 4th and 2. And that's when Michigan State called a timeout. They're at their own, 22-yard line or thereabouts, 19-yard line. They're in their own territory, 28-yard line, I think it was, and call timeout. If you're blowing your second timeout of the second half, you figure, gosh, they're gonna go for it. You don't want to blow a timeout and then have it go to waste. And Jonathan Smith said after the game that they were going to go for it, and I think the timeout. I don't know if the timeout was to talk about it or they had a. I've got the quote in there somewhere, but I'll get to it when I write my story. But they were going to go for it, and maybe the personnel group wasn't quite right, so they called timeout. Then they rethought it and decided to go ahead and punt. They thought with the wind they could flip it. They had been playing well on defense. They had just forced 2 3 and outs on defense themselves as the Michigan State Spartans. So kick it back, play defense. I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, man, risk reward, you got to punt right now. You're down by 8 points. There's what, about 10 minutes to go in the game, maybe 12 minutes to go in the game. Um, the reward, if you pick it up, you still have to go 75 yards to score a touchdown. Your defense has been playing well. Go ahead and punt it. So they went ahead and punted it. The dude returns it to the 50-yard line. They had a holding penalty, but they still got to the 50. Jonathan Smith mentioned their punt return game. He thought with the yardage in there, the hidden yardage and so forth, the field position was one of the two biggest factors in the game. The punt return yardage, they never broke off a big one, but they continually had good field position. That and the third downs. He thought the punt return situation was big. And on that one, deciding not to go for it. And I'm not saying it was wrong to go for it. Going for it there would have been a huge risk. If you don't pick it up, you're practically losing the game right there. Punt it to the 50. 4 plays later, they're in the end zone with a touchdown. But not only that, about 3 or 4 plays later, one of those third down situations, 3rd down and 10, 49-yard line. It's the third play of the drive. Michigan State brings 5. They bring a pressure. 5 end up coming. 7 come initially, and then 2 drop back off. And I just got another look at it a minute ago. If you're bringing 5 and you're in cover 3, that's 5 plus 3 is 8. That only leaves 3 defenders through the middle of the field. And that's where they attacked on that dig route to Bryant over the middle. And that's why he was so open. Another reason why he's so open, they sent Collins deep, number 17. So the middle safety, Martinez, goes with him. Denson was on the field as the other safety at the time. They had 2 safeties in the cover 3. Both safeties are influenced deep by 17. You got to get as deep as the deepest. That leaves the middle of the field open. So that's like a dagger concept. Takes the top off the defense, top one off the defense, dig route to 13. And who's back there covering him? Jordan Hall fakes like he's going to pass rush, comes off to bracket him, and he's got him bracketed for a second, but the quarterback's got all day. It's a 5-man rush. He shouldn't have that much time. So 5's supposed to be back there with Snow. Snow acts like he's pass rushing, and then he gets back to help Hall in the middle of the field. Because like I said, you got 5 rushing and 3 back there. That only gives you 3 players in the middle of the field. One of them's Hall. The other one's supposed to be Snow. He acts like he's going to rush to draw some pass protection. Then as Snow is dropping back to get into the middle, he collides with Bogle. And so many key plays this year. I can think of one against Boston College and one other one. I don't know what the other one was, where there's a collision and ends up taking Snow out of it by a couple of steps, and Snow drops, but not quite deep enough to have an impact on that crossing route. 3rd and 10 gets loose for 30 yards. Bogle's coming on a stunt, collides with Snow, so Bogle never gets to the quarterback. So not only are you blocking Snow from getting in the coverage, you're blocking Bogle from getting to the quarterback. And it's Keystone Cops, and it's not the way they draw it up. That's just kind of, they talk about they need to execute. Didn't execute that one, didn't get home on a 5-man rush. And that's, of all the third down conversions, they had a big one on their opening second touchdown drive as well. But that was the turning point of the game. That 3rd and 10 conversion, Michigan State down by 8. They gained 30 yards down to the 19-yard line. A couple plays later, McCray 1-yard touchdown. Now it's a 15-point game. Game is pretty much over. That third down right there hurt a lot. And it continues to be a situation where Michigan State didn't get blown out statistically, play after play. It's not like they were physically manhandled, but the old adage about execution, that one in particular, lack of execution today in so many ways, including pass rush and pass protection.
Some of it comes down to personnel too. Like when you really think about it, I mean, as far as like, Michigan State does not have their dogs out there, with a secondary. And if you're not getting 4-man, if you're not getting 4-man pressure, reliably like Michigan State was at the beginning of the season, if you're not getting that 4-man pressure, then you're susceptible to huge plays like that if there is a mistake on the blitz. And the reason why Michigan State got some of those 3-and-outs was because they did send defensive backs and whatnot in the second half, and they were blitzing more.
Yeah.
They got burned on that, and that's going to happen when you've got a veteran quarterback, when you've got talented wide receivers. I'm not going to mince words here, but Illinois, and I've said this all year long when we talked about potential matchups, Illinois has good receivers. Pat Bryant is a dang good receiver. The dude that caught that amazing catch in the end zone was a good receiver. They've got good skill
Franklin.
personnel. And
those guys are both NFL receivers, Bryant
yeah.
and Franklin.
Well, and Altmaier's a guy that was where Aiden Childs is this year, in my opinion. He's a guy that was a 13 touchdown, 10 interception guy a year ago as a 9-game starter. This year, he's a guy that can make plays like he did. And now he didn't play perfect in this game, and he had some mistakes, and there were a couple near interceptions. But he's a good enough trigger man, where he can win a game like this when his defense is playing well, and and he did what he was supposed to do. I think Illinois is a better team than Michigan is, and I think Illinois got they got some depth, they got some skill guys, but Altmaier's a good quarterback, and he hurt them a couple times with his legs, picking up a couple third downs with some scrambles. That's what that's what a guy in his third year of experience should be doing for their team. And the other thing he did is he can change the plays at the line of scrimmage. You go back into that first their first touchdown drive. I believe he switched the formation in that play, the one where Angelo Gross got beat.
Yeah.
I think they put some beef over on that side of the field on one side of the formation. I think Angelo Gross got pulled over there a little bit cheating to that side of the
That's
formation
that
because
it was Tripp's formation over there, three receivers, and Bryant's the middle of the three. And I tweeted about this. So if you go three receivers over here to tight end over there, that's dub formation. Tight end over here and three over here. So as a defense, you have to make a choice. Do you keep one corner over there, or do you bring both corners over there and play corners over? Michigan State kept both a corner on either side of the field. They kept corner on the tight end side, the open side. And so if you have a corner here, corner there, then you've got Snow or Gross, like you said, in the middle and over here matching up against number two, Bryant, which is what Illinois was looking for. So they didn't go corners over. We got Bryant against 15. They scouted Gross. They know he's had struggles over the years, I would assume. Went right to it and beat him pretty badly, pretty easily. They didn't do that again until maybe two possessions later on the second or third play. And on that one, Michigan State brought corners over and they switched to a run. So you're right. They did have a personnel thing over there. And they probably, I didn't see whether they checked, but you're probably right. They checked to that when they saw the matchup, went to it, got 7 points on it, matchup football. That's where Michigan State's a matchup down there. Gross, we know he's had problems over the years. He played really well at the beginning of the season, injuries and all that stuff and getting depth in the program. But I don't know if he'd been starting or what his role would be. But with Bryant and his speed, if you're not going to go corners over, the type of guy you need on over there to do that is Dylan Tatum. Dylan Tatum's
and
the
I
guy
think
that could go over and run with that guy, and you don't have Dylan Tatum.
Jim, I think too that he was not. I think too that he was thinking it might be a run too because I think he was.
Gross.
Yeah, and I was thinking because of the way the formation was over there, and Robert Smith said this, but it looked like that when we rewatched the play. I felt like he was more over than he should have been if he was expecting Bryant to get the ball, and that's when he tripped a little bit. There's no way he had a chance to recover, but I think he was leaning in the wrong direction on that. I think he was expecting run. I can't say that for certain, but I don't think he was quite right on that. Even if he thought he was going to be matched up on Bryant.
So today, Michigan State played without Charles Brantley and Malik Spencer. Based on the way Jonathan Smith was talking about it on Monday, you could kind of read between the lines when he said, "We'll see what they look like later in the week." Didn't sound all that positive. Of course, they didn't play today. Jonathan Smith said after the game, doesn't look good for them coming back. And we were like, for the season, he says, yeah, two more games, yeah. So he didn't um, indicate whether if they'd be able to play in a bowl game or not. But Brantley and Spencer going to be gone. Looks like for these last two games, basically the last three games, the last 3.5 games, if you count the Indiana game. So I've written about this and we'll talk about it some more. But when you go back to August, the starting defensive backfield was going to be Brantley, Rucker, probably Tatum, and Spencer. All four of those guys not available for the last third of the season. Michigan State was at a point where they had some pretty good depth coming into the year, but not enough to withstand all of that. We remember earlier in the year in September when they had some injuries right off the bat. Then it subsided for a few weeks. Now it's coming back a little bit. And today, Jalen Thompson missed a tackle on their second touchdown, bounced outside. McCray broke a tackle. They might have scored anyway on that drive, but looking like a true freshman there. But like Jonathan Smith said, got a lot of plays, got a lot of experience. Second half, Denson was in instead of Jalen Thompson for a lot of that. At the corner position, ended up playing Ade Willie a little bit, and he was beaten pretty badly on an out and up. Ade Willie did not play that well in the spring game. He's limited as a corner, and he was out there and really, really got exposed there on that out and up for a deep one. I think that one went for a touchdown or for a big gain. Can't remember exactly the outcome on that one, but he didn't play much after that. number three, the transfer from LSU, Jeremiah, I forget his name. So he played some corner along with Woods, and then Caleb Coley played for the first time all year. He's been injured all year, came back, suited up the last couple of games on the field today. He might have even started. He and Willie were switching off in the first half. And Coley, he was beaten on that touchdown by Franklin. It was pretty good coverage. Franklin made that twisting circus catch, got his toes down. Franklin's outstanding. Franklin's a guy that had like 90 plus receptions twice at Texas San Antonio. They transferred to Ole Miss and then here to Illinois. Those are two big time receivers. They've been good all year. So you have revolving doors. You're a corner. Caleb Coley hasn't played all year. Didn't play in the spring. Wasn't around the summer. Year in. Jeremiah Bryant, the transfer from LSU, hasn't played much all year. Year in. Ade Willie, not quite good enough. I think he's more of a safety type, but we need somebody corner year in and going against these receivers without getting a lot of pressure on Altmaier. Those were all problems. And the safety position with Armorion Smith not available and Malik Spencer not available, your answers are a couple of true freshmen. And, people can argue about Michigan State. This is the deal, Paul. If you look at our message board and some of the grumbling, people are grumbling. They see what Indiana's doing, and Michigan State beat Iowa and looked pretty good and looked like they had a chance to do some things. They pushed Michigan around the field for a quarter and a half, lose that game. So there's a lot of hand wringing, like, gosh, I don't. You see this on the message board. People are like, I don't know about the whole rebuilding process. Um, Michigan State had a chance to do some things this year, and they still can do some things, but the program is as such that after a couple of injuries, you got true freshmen out there. There's some programs that can trot some true freshmen out there and get some really, good play right away. But for Michigan State, they look like freshmen, and today in the defensive backfield it broke off a couple of times. Nothing in terms of miscommunications necessarily, but just, freshmen giving up some plays here and there, and maybe more importantly, freshmen being not quite capable of making an impact play to change it going the other way. Your thoughts on the state of the team, and I don't know if you've seen some of the reactions or not, but your thoughts about some of the panic ensuing because Michigan State's 4-6.
I mean, yeah, it's human nature, right? This is going to be even worse in the era of the 12-team playoff because there's lots of other teams that are making quick changes and getting personnel in it. But you got to go back to what Jonathan Smith inherited, how much they lost, how many new players are on this roster. But the two things that you can't do some things. I mean, you're really limited when you don't have a pass rush, A, and then B, you've got true freshmen in behind there. There's only certain things that you can do. Yeah, you can blitz a little bit, but if you're going up against good receivers with a competent quarterback, it's going to get you. Michigan State's just got to work hard and try to continue to play better, and not finger point as I said earlier. I understand that fans are hand wringing, but it's not, and I get that. Uh, but this program was at a pretty low place after 3 years of Mel Tucker, and he sold a lot of bull crap. About what in a lot of ways, and the program was a mercenary program when Jonathan Smith took over. There was not a lot of winners. Like there's a couple guys that stayed, I think, are winners, and there's some pretty decent leadership at the player level. But this was a legit rebuild in
Yeah,
terms of like it wasn't easy, and it might have happened overnight in Indiana,
all
um,
right.
and I think that Indiana kind of got lucky with who they hired and the guys that they brought in. It's not like people thought that was a home run hire at the time. I mean, it's a 16-year-old
No,
guy that they brought in, but it goes back to like what I've said quite a bit over the years. Like sometimes the Michigan State fan base has a covet your neighbor's wife type of mentality.
yes,
And I even got some texts from some people at the start of that East Carolina game the other night on Thursday night on ESPN when Caden
yeah,
Hauser was moving the ball, saying, "Hey, he looks pretty good. He looks better than Aiden Childs." And then he goes and throws a bunch of interceptions in that game. And I'm not ripping on people that are my friends that send me texts like that. I'm just
that's all
saying
right. You
that
can rip on
there's a
them. You
pro-
can rip on your
there's
friends.
a
They can
there's
handle it.
a there's a process, and
Yeah,
sometimes you might be ahead of the process and you might get lucky. Michigan State's been a little bit unlucky with some injuries, but I'll go back to what Courtney Hawkins, wide receivers coach, said earlier this week. He said he feels like there's a lot of sunshine in the building at Michigan State, and that they're pretty close to turning this thing in terms of as a program, and that he feels like the place that Michigan State is in a good place, and they will be moving forward under Jonathan Smith. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There's a lot of hand wringing in year one under Mark Antonio, where people, were like thought that they should have done better than they did, even though he inherited a pile of not Shinola from John L. Smith. So I just think Michigan State's got to keep working. They got to beat Purdue, and then, if they can get to a bowl game, that's progress. And given the schedule that they played this year, there is no bad team in the Big Ten. There is no bad team on Michigan State's schedule so far. And yeah, should they beat Michigan? Maybe. Should they beat Boston College? Yeah. But you're also playing with a first year starter at quarterback, and you're going to have some issues. Offensive line, not what it should be, not what it will be moving forward. There's been a lot of issues that they've had to overcome, but these guys have kept working and working hard, and hopefully they stick together and stay together, and can earn a bowl bid similar to what Michigan State did in, I think, Mark Antonio's final season as head coach, getting to the um, Pinstripe Bowl, finishing with a winning season. Um, it's doable, but it's going to take some work, and those young players in the secondary are going to have to show some growth, but they need some help from that pass rush, and
Yeah, it'll it'll
that's got to
it'll take
happen.
some work, and anything worthwhile requires some work. They needed to do that in 2019. More importantly, they needed to do it in 2012 when they had to beat Minnesota at Minnesota when they were 5-6 to get to 6-6 to get to whatever bowl that was in Arizona to go to 7-6, and then the next year to go to the Rose Bowl. I'm not saying this team's a year away from going to the Rose Bowl or anything, but that was year 6 for Mark D'Antonio. You talk about hand wringing. In year 6, he was 5-6 going into week number 12. Now he had done a lot of great things in 2010, 2011, 2009. Prior to that, definitely had a lot of equity built up. But that's the nature of college football. When you talk about coveting neighbor's wife and things like that. When you look at Indiana, that on one hand, that makes Michigan State feel like crap. Why aren't we like that? But the good thing is, when you look at Indiana, that's doable for a team to make a rise like that overnight. We'll see what Indiana looks like next year. But the college football level and landscape, it does present itself that you can make a quick rise. It's not going to happen for Michigan State this year. You can do it either way. You look around the country, and I know that the NIL wasn't and the portal wasn't quite what it was a few years ago that it is now, but go back and look at the first few years of Eli Drinkowitz at Missouri. They've fallen off a little bit this year, but look at the first few years there. Look at the first few years for Beamer at South Carolina. Now look what they're doing this year. You look at Vanderbilt. I know that's a downtrodden program, but for a couple of years there, they were just like Vanderbilt, and they've risen up this year, done some good things. Just look what Jonathan Smith did at Oregon State the first couple of years, and the biggest example, different situation, different talent level. I don't know. Look at Colorado last year. Did it a different year. Did it a different way, and having success this year. Florida State, the first couple of years, Norvell looked very bad. Everybody was all wondering what was going on there. Then last year they go 12-0. This year they've dropped back off again. It's the nature of college football. Michigan State, did they have the pieces to go 9-3 this year? If everything would have shaken out right, yeah, possibly. If everything had been perfect, but also the pieces to be 4-6 right now. It's a fine line between those two things. Got a short week coming up this week, and we'll continue to cover that as I get back to East Lansing. We covered on Monday. Let's shift to basketball real quick, Paul. I know you watched it tonight. Michigan State 86-72 over Bowling Green. Bowling Green led by double figures in the first half. They led by 8, and we're shooting, I think, a 3-pointer to go up 11 with about 10 minutes to go. Michigan State finishes on an 18-0 run. I think 7 out of 8 from the foul line during that 18-0 run. Jaden Akins with, I think, a couple of free throws, but a big 3-pointer, which, he was 1 for 5 from 3-point range. He missed some open ones. Some of that aggravation looked to be setting in again, but he hit a big one. Any of those would have been big, but the last one he took during that 18-0 run was a pivotal part of that 18-0 run. Michigan State still goes 4 of 20 from 3-point range. Akins did some things outside of scoring, but Michigan State against Bowling Green, you said this was going to be a difficult game, Paul, and you were right. This was difficult. How'd you know that?
Well, I just think Bowling Green with Todd Simon, it's one of those things, and I go back to like what Dave Fife was at IPFW. I knew going down there in that game that Michigan State played down there would be a close game because people that respect Tom Izzo and they want to try to emulate his program, they do. And I think you look at some elements of what Todd Simon does at Bowling Green, and they get out and try to run, and they do some good things running. Like Michigan State, they've got a lot of shooters. I think the other thing that they do is they confuse you with what they do on defense with kind of a like a weirdo zone slash man to man type of thing, and it's kind of confusing. But the other thing is they put you in positions where you have to make shots. They also have a big man that's kind of an anomaly, a strange guy, kind of similar to what Indiana State had last year. They can shoot some threes, and I think they had a chance to beat Michigan State in this game. I think he got worn out in the second half. I think if you go back and watch that game, Carson Cooper deserves a heck of a lot of credit, for playing good defense on him. And really, I think he settled for some threes, and it hurt them. Michigan State kept working, kept grinding. I thought Cohen Carr did a really nice job in this game, scrapping for some of those like loose ball rebounds. I thought Michigan State got burned quite a bit by Xavier Booker in this game. He is a guy that is going to. We've said this before. He is a guy that if he's not going 100%, he's going to get Michigan State beat, and he almost did in this game a few times. Um, the two combinations of the big men they had, that number 14 Towns, and then the dude that's about Derek Nick's size that can shoot on the perimeter but can also go inside. Those guys were problems, and Towns went off in the first half. I'm not so sure I like the idea to start Jackson Pollard in this game. We talked last time on the VCast about some of the good things that Zapala does early in terms of like wearing some guys down. I think Kohler's nice coming off the bench because you can get him oiled up and do some post stuff when guys are tired. But Bowling Green, they were into Michigan State stuff. No surprise because Todd Simon has known Izzo for a long time. Tum Tum Nairn's on the bench. These are guys that know what Michigan State does. Came in preparing to play Michigan State at a high level, and that's a good team. They went from losing 20 games 2 years ago before Simon got there to winning 20 games last year. They're going to be a contender in the MAC, and I've always thought this about Todd Simon. He's one of the best coaches that nobody knows about in college basketball. When he was on the assistant coach at UNLV, he was running that show when they were pretty good for a couple of years there. And then, there's a coaching change. He went to a smaller division, but he's back in the Midwest, and I think his star is on the rise. He's a heck of a coach, and he's going to win some MAC championships coming up. I really believe that.
All right, so Akins takes 16 shots, not shy, only 5 of 16, makes the big three-pointer that I mentioned a minute ago, 1 of 5 from three-point range. Didn't shoot real well, scores 13, team high. Michigan State had 7 players in double figures. On the positive note, the big message from Izzo coming after the Kansas game was, if you're not shooting well, find other ways to make an impact. Defense, rebound, share the ball. That's exactly what Akins did. I didn't watch all 40 minutes. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but Akins with the team high 12 rebounds, team high 13 points, but the 12 rebounds, 6 assists, played some defense, 2 steals, clearing the defensive glass a lot, 3 offensive rebounds. Akins didn't shoot well again, but the rest of his game, he listened to Izzo on that and contributed in other ways and led the team also in plus minus with 18. So Akins didn't shoot well, but he was a big part of Michigan State holding it together and avoiding an embarrassing loss. Akins, solid job, I thought.
Yeah, and I thought he did some of those like secondary defensive things late in the game when they went around that 18-0 run, where if like one of those Bowling Green guys got the ball and someone got a deflection or someone or a Bowling Green offensive player was holding the ball in the wrong spot. I thought Akins went in there and raked it out. He was on the floor, just scrapping and clawing, and he did like dirty work type of stuff, and that was good to
Yes.
see for him. Now he only shot 1 3. He only shot 1 3 in that first half, I believe. He was 0 for 1. So I give him credit for like when the game was on the line for being willing to shoot shots. We've seen him turn some stuff down. He missed some good looks late in the game, but him making that one was a big deal. And then also, um, you know, Michigan State crashing that glass hard when the shot was in the air. And I think when Cole, that's the one thing that Cohen Carr gives you at the 4. If Xavier Booker's not making shots at the 4, and you're not getting that 3 point element at the 4, what Cohen Carr gives you is he gives you hustle, grit, and second chance scoring opportunities. There's not much standing around out there. When he's on the floor, I think he can get better playing on-ball defense. I still think that's a kind of a struggle for him. But the more minutes that he plays and the more scrap that he gives Michigan State, the better. Um, I knew this was going to be a grind. They're going to have another tough game against Samford. I'm not sure what Samford lost, but that's a team that went to the NCAA tournament last year, and they're going to be coming into Michigan State looking to do some things. Michigan State's got to make some open shots. There's no doubt about that. Frankie Fiddler missed a lot of good threes tonight. I thought the threes looked good coming off his hand, but until they go in, it's going to be a problem. And I think that's for everybody. Trey Holloman
Mm-hmm.
missed some shots. He did some good things in the first half. But Michigan State's got to make more shots, but they're doing a good job of, at least in the second half. They played better defense in that second half, and I think part of it was Cohen Carr, part of it was guys like Cooper, um, Booker not being on the floor. Uh, I thought Jackson Kohler did some good things, but Xavier Booker has got to absolutely, if they want to do anything or get at least one win in Maui, Xavier Booker has got to get back to being reprogrammed, because there was times tonight where shot went up and I still saw him jogging back. Now, Bowling Green's guards are athletic, but they didn't go back and beat him in transition like Kansas did. But he has got to get his head back on his shoulders. I'd
He's
go
got
back
to
into making him earn it mode, because he doesn't deserve to be out there right now.
he's got to compete for loose balls and rebounds. There was a loose ball. There was one time I heard you yelling all the way from Michigan that he didn't go for two hands on a rebound, which is one of your commandments. And there was a loose ball near midcourt that he just kind of reached for with one hand. I mean, just I that gets back to some of the habits that he brought to East Lansing that they've been programming out of him, but a lot of those reverted back to the negative. I was wrong about the plus minus. Cohen Carr was actually the best on the team at a plus 19. Akins was a plus 8, but Booker was a plus 1. Didn't start for the first time all year, only played 10 minutes. And after that exchange I mentioned a moment ago, my only post on the in-game thread over the Final Forum was, I think that's all we're going to see of Booker for the rest of the night. And there were still like 16 minutes or 14 minutes left in the game. And at that point, Michigan State was down 8, and he was just losing those bumper car battles. And made a three-pointer in the first half. Good for him on that, but you can't outscore your deficiencies, and these other things will get you beat in the Big Ten. Izzo's had a lot of patience with Booker. A lot of people think that Izzo didn't give him enough of a chance last year. He didn't deserve a chance because he wasn't good enough. Booker's a good kid, heads on straight, wants to do the right thing, but it's a programming process, and it's a complete revamping and rebuild. Like, Paul and I talked about when he committed to Michigan State, and I've said it 1,000 times, and Izzo said the same thing last week. Booker never asked to be ranked the number one player in the country. And we at Spartan Mag tried to tell the readers, settle down, don't expect the world. We said everything, but he was overrated, because I don't want to put that tag on him. I just mentioned that word for the first time ever, but we've talked about it before. But it's not his fault where he was ranked. But he made some progress. The last couple of games, he's taken some steps backward. Kohler starts at the center position, but Kohler, only plays 16 minutes. Cooper played real well. Kohler scores 10 points, though, did well at the foul line. And Carson Cooper, the guy you mentioned earlier, 12 points, 19 minutes, good defense on the big man, 4 to 5 from the field. And Cooper with 4 out of 4 from the free throw line. He's worked on that. And knock on wood, if you're a Michigan State fan, does not seem to be a liability at the free throw line anymore. Still has to keep proving it there. But the Johnson kid reminded me of the big guy for George Mason back in 2006. Big Jelly. Remember Big Jelly?
Was that Jai Lucas? Is that what his name was?
Yeah. Jai Lucas. Pretty. I love it. I love it. So Kohler starts. Cohen Carr, 26 minutes, second on the team in minutes tonight. Moved him to the 4 during crunch time, stayed on the court during crunch time. Big development there. 5 out of 8 from the field, electrifying with some dunks, offensive glass dunk, transition dunk. Like you said, needs to bring the defense a little bit better. But Cohen Carr, crunch time minutes at the 4, and that's a nice weapon Michigan State can go to. I don't know if that's ever